Hare Krishna. मम ज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितेन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः. We are in 27th chapter. Prabhupada is discussing. This is a very interesting chapter. By understanding in this very systematic way, we will be able to increase our faith in the process, in the whole system of Krishna consciousness. That's why all these details are given, especially if we want to go more deeper in our practice, more intense. We will be needing all this information, and that becomes into our understanding and realizations eventually. So this is a process that gave for a living entity to come out of this material world. And before entering into 10th canto, we have to go through all these understandings. And based on our whatever Krishna wants us to understand, that much only we'll be able to understand, but we have to make an endeavor to understand. So now what we are doing is we are trying to endeavor to understand these things. So now here understanding material nature, because we are caught in this material nature. So we should need to understand what is this material nature, how we are caught in this. So here we'll just read the translations. And the personality of Godhead, Kapila continued, when the living entity is thus unaffected by the modes of mental nature because he is unchanging and does not claim proprietorship, he remains apart from the reactions of modes, although abiding in a material body, which the sun remains aloof from its reflections on water. So he is telling how the living entity is not affected. It's already pure. One thing we can understand, like if somebody try to find fault with us, then we try to justify why that tendency is there, because living entity is pure. We are all pure. That's why when somebody says you're wrong, we'll not be able to accept it. The impurity is for the body and the mind, not for the soul. So that's why we always try to justify and we find faults to prove that we are right. Like if somebody comes and try to find fault in us, we try to fault in that person because to prove ourselves right, like that. And not only we are pure, even our enemies are also pure. They are also pure because they are also spirit souls. When the soul is under the spell of mental nature, the false ego, identifying his body as a self, he becomes absorbed in mental activities. And by the influence of false ego, he thinks that he is the proprietor of everything. So this is the problem for the living entity, that spell of mental nature and false ego. So these two things we have elaborately discussed also, of how the identification is what is the big headache for all the living entities, and we are all caught up very badly because of this identification. So mental nature and false ego, and to come out of it we need to come out of this false ego only. What is the stage of nishta? Nishta is a stage where our false ego is very minimum. That's why it is nishta stage. So the stage of nishta which we are all aspiring, this is a very special stage, because what happens here is the false ego is very less. That's why to practice, they say, na, You practice is very easy after Krishna because ego is very less. That's why the practice is easy. Uh, Easy because less ego. That means the more a person is getting free from ego, that means he's becoming more fixed up in Krishna consciousness. That's how we understand, right? The conditioned soul, therefore, transmigrates into different species of life, higher and lower, because of his association with modes of mental nature. Unless he is relieved of material activities, he has to accept this position because of his faulty work. So, what happens is our work is based on what? Work is based on ego. We have discussed this also. Work is based on ego. Like you, anybody joins any company, the first thing they do is they give a designation. They say, okay, this person is so and so and department, and he has this designation. So the designation helps him to act. That is the point. And that means here, what we are understanding is how we are getting systematically entangled. That's what Lord Kapila is explaining. So he's telling first as such the living entity is pure. Then in the second shloka he says, but under the spell of material nature and false ego, he is identifying with the body. And third shloka he says, he transmigrates into different species because of his faulty work, because of his false ego, is acting differently, and because of the activity gets different. Then he says, actually the living entity is transcendental to material existence, but because of his mentality of lording it over material nature, his material existential condition does not cease, and just as in a dream, is affected by all sorts of disadvantages. This selfishness, desire, all these things is making him, because of his mentality of lording it over. So this false ego makes us lording it over. And even though nothing is happening to the soul, this is very important. Here, what Lord Kapila is telling, actually living entity is transcendental to material existence. This is very important. So I told, na, living entity is always pure, but the false ego makes us identify, and that identity makes us problem. Like person is in a dream, nothing is happening to him, but we get affected by dreams. So sometimes I get a nightmare like I'm again going to school and writing exam. I feel so bad, so terrified. And somehow when I wake up, I feel so much relieved. Oh my God, no exam. And sometime I get a dream like I'm failed in the exam. So somehow maybe that fear is still there. It comes as nightmare. So it happens. Like some people face with some accident or some very bad dreams, and we seriously get affected by it, even though nothing is happening there. It is a duty of every conditioned soul to engage his polluted consciousness, which is now attached to material enjoyment, in very serious devotional service with detachment. That his mind and consciousness will be under full control. So this is what is the responsibility of all of us. It is a duty according to Lord Kapila. As a duty also, and people they speak about different duties. But what is the main duty? As soon as you get a human body, this is what we should do. And we should engage very serious devotional service with a detachment. Vairagya Vidya Nija Bhakti Yoga. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came and gave the Vairagya Vidya. This bhakti with detachment, right? And then he further says that one has to become faithful by practicing the controlling process of yoga system and must elevate himself to the platform of unalloyed devotional service by chanting and hearing about him. Now he says, okay, now it is a responsibility. Now he told in the three shlokas how a living entity is entangled, and then he said, okay, now it is the responsibility of living entity to get free from it by devotional service. And what is the devotional service? He says you should hear about me. Devotional service by chanting and hearing about me. So that is the process he gave. So this is, and then next he says in executing devotional service, one has to see every living entity equal without enmity towards anyone. And he says that yet without intimate connection with anyone. And one has to observe celibacy, be grave, and execute his eternal activities, offering the result to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, this is what is expected. Without enmity towards anyone, yet without intimate connection with anyone. So, means no attachment, means no too much aversion and no too much attachment. Both are not. Yuktahar viharasya. This is very important. What happens is too much enmity will make us mind full of negativity, and too much attachment will make mind very emotional and weak. So in both cases, it is detrimental for our practice. So we should not be emotionally so attached to somebody that has problem in our mind that causes weakness. You start depending on the person. If we are attached emotionally, we start depending on that person. And what happens is even that person feels very uncomfortable. Sometimes it happens like no old persons, old men, they'll be so much dependent on the wife when they become old. So wife feels very uncomfortable that this person depends on me for everything. Uh, so that is actually the problem. This is too much is not good in any case. Intimate attachment with devotees, there is a question chat box. What was intimate attachment? Intimate attachment should not be, we should know whom to give how much attachment. Uh, Intimate attachment for us is we discuss Krishna Katha, that is the intimate attachment. We have some struggles, we discuss with them, that is intimate attachment. Intimate attachment does not mean you are eating in the same plate, you are trying to like always hang around the person. Of course, in ashram, that is okay. We need some sort of social relationship. But like same, what happens? Attachment in the sense like without him, nothing is happening with me. Uh, uh, but devotee is okay. Like here, what I'm telling is like. For every small thing he have to call that person, or that person should be around. You want to always see, he speaks with the person all the time. So sometimes old persons are dependent on the wife so much, so the person on whom they are dependent, the person feels very burdened because of that too much attachment of this person towards him. That is not actually good. The they feel burdened. It's not burden that they are carrying that person, but they know that this person is so much dependent on me emotionally. That is not good. So here, when Kapila is telling without intimate, so enmity and intimate, so that is both are not good for. And then one has to observe celibacy, be grave. This is very important as we progress in the spiritual path. We had internally we are making so much. Internally we are becoming deeper, then person is very grave, is not superficial, and offering the results to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So things very nicely explained. And then he says, for his income a devotee should be satisfied with what he earns without great difficulty. This is also, we have discussed, I have spoken on this so much, but he earns without great difficulty is very important. We should not make prayasa. Whatever comes on its own. He should not eat more than what is necessary. He should live in a secluded place and always be thoughtful, peaceful, friendly, compassionate, and self realized. Just by hearing these words only, if a person feels very happy, excited, and aspire for this, that is very good sign. Many people like cities, they don't like secluded places. But for devotees, we should be always aspiring for this. And we should be thoughtful. Anything we hear, we should think about it. And in a daytime, like now we hear the class. So in daytime, we should think, well, what Prabhupada is telling, what Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur is telling. We should be thoughtful. Well, how it is relevant to me, how it is applicable, what it means. And this is peaceful. We should be peaceful, especially while we are chanting, so that we can hear the holy name. Friendly, compassionate, and self realized. And yeah, we have some important points here. According to Bhagavatam conclusions, we are sometimes faith is dangerous. Sorry, in everyone is earning and acquiring according to his prescribed predestined karma. So this is what I already discussed very elaborately on this. Uh, these 3 stars are for this. That means now whatever people are earning, na, we should not become envious of them. Because of envy, what happens? Now we also want to become like them, and unnecessarily we waste our time, and we feel left out. We feel, "Arey, I am losing something," or why my children are not getting gold medal? They are also not becoming like this. All these things are because of not understanding this principle. Everyone is earning and acquiring according to his predestined karma. This should be very clear. Then we will not become envious and we are happy with whatever we are getting in our lives. We make our full endeavor and then whatever comes we are okay. That is the reason why the when Karl Marx, no, he he was trying to establish this communism, the philosophy or whatever. Then he was studying all the cultures of the world, and everywhere there were some sort of revolutions. After some years of practicing certain capitalism and other things, this, he always saw there is a revolution because the upper sections of the society were suppressing or some exploitation of the weaker sections. But when he studied the Vedic culture, he saw that millions of years this culture is going on, but there were never any revolutions. He was surprised. He didn't find any fault in them because there is no envy in the system. Everybody understands this, the law of karma. There was envy but not so much, because everybody knows, okay, he's a brahmana, so no shudra or a kshatriya or a vaishya will compete with a brahmana. No kshatriya will compete with a vaishya. Vaishya will not compete with a kshatriya, because everybody is, they may compete among themselves, but they'll not compete with the higher race, higher the caste, because they know that he is destined to be a kshatriya, so let him be kshatriya. He'll be happy in his vaishya duties. He don't want to become a king. Vaishya, okay, he's happy. A brahmana, he will hardly like to become a king. Even opportunity comes, very rarely some of them may become a king, but he will not be happy like that. So the point what I want to tell is, this is very important to understand. If, because now why there is so much competition in society, and from children third fourth class only they are preparing for IIT, and even after getting job also, in the job also so much competition. Like 50 60 years back, if somebody got a job, then a whole life he is happy doing that job. He said, okay, he may get some less job whole life. He is not running here there to get better and better job, increase more and more. That was not there only. He thought job means okay, rest of the life this is the job. Why? Because there is no envy. You know why I don't have Mercedes. It's okay, I am destined for this, so he is happy. So the predestined karma, this understanding made people satisfied. This is okay. This is what is in my karma. I'll continue with this. He may desire to have, but he's not so much okay. Not in my karma. Like they used to purchase a cycle. That is good enough for them. somebody has some scooter or bike, you say, okay, that is their level. Okay. Somebody has a car. So it was now because the people are competing with each other and they are envious, and then they don't understand this traditional karma. Everybody think they have to earn more, they have to acquire, but it's not possible like that. So here, according to Bhagavatam conclusions, we are sometimes faced with dangerous and miserable conditions without endeavor for them. And similarly, we may have prosperous conditions without endeavoring for them. You see, it is already destined. So simple. So we are advised to let these things come as predestined. We should engage our valuable time in prosecuting Krishna consciousness. In other words, we should be satisfied by his, one should be satisfied by his natural condition. If by predestination one is put in certain condition of life, which is not very prosperous in comparison with another's position, one should not be disturbed. He simply should try to utilize his valuable time to advance in Krishna consciousness. Advancement in Krishna consciousness does not depend on one materially prosperous or distressed conditions. It is free from the conditions imposed by material life. So this we have discussed. So because it's a long time gap, so we forget. So I was doing some revision. And as a materialist is always thoughtful about uh, improving the material condition, a devotee's thought should always be engaged in improving his conditions in Krishna consciousness. Therefore, he should be Muni. That should be his only anxiety. This is what Prabhupada is telling. Such a nice purport. And then once seeing power should be increased to knowledge of spirit and matter, and should not be unnecessarily identifying himself with body and thus become attracted by bodily relationships. So this is another important point. One should not unnecessarily identify himself with body and thus become attracted by body relationship. Like a person, when anybody going out of the house, what is the thing they do before going house? They look themselves in the mirror and go. Why they look themselves in the mirror? Because that is the identity we feel. This is I am. Like sometime for brahmacharis we shave our head. Sometimes we forget to shave some part because in hurry we forget. So then when we go, we say, oh, some hair is remaining here at my shika, some hair is remaining back. So we feel, oh, what happened? Because we identify, so we feel little uncomfortable. Somebody did not wear the proper matching dress. For us, it is easy. We have only one dress. For devotees, it is easy. They wear dhoti kurta, so it's easy, simple. But if you have some complicated dresses, then they are very unhappy. "Arey, my shoes are not matching with my dress. My earrings are not matching with my dress, or some my tie is not matching, or my bangles are not something or else." So this identification is very strong. But you see that okay, one should not unnecessarily identify with the body and thus become attached by body relationship. So this is another part. Purports are very valuable purports. Again, you have to uh, Prabhupada is giving such huge amount of knowledge in a condensed way. One should be situated in the transcendental position beyond the stages of material consciousness, and one should be aloof from all other conceptions of life. Thus, realizing freedom from false ego, one should see his own self just as he sees the sun in the sky. So ultimately, what we should come out of? False ego. So, and then he says that a liberated soul. So this is how we got entangled Now you do your bhakti, devotional service, and then he also told how doing bhakti by hearing and chanting the glories of Lord. Then he told that the person should like to go to secluded place. He should be self-realized. He should be, should not have intimate relation or enmity, and then he should be a muni, and all these qualities are mentioned. And then he will come out of this bodily conceptions, and he will stop identifying himself. Then a liberated soul realizes the absolute personality of Godhead, who is transcendental and who is manifest as a reflection even in the false ego. He is the support of the material cause and he enters into everything. He is absolute, one without a second, and he is the eyes of all illusory energy. The presence of the Supreme Lord can be realized just as the sun is realized first as a reflection on the water and again as a second reflection in the wall of the room, although the sun itself is situated in the sky. So this is how the Paramatma is there in the heart of all living. A self-realized soul, that means this is actually what happens. If you control the mind, then the Paramatma is realized. Control the mind means what? We stop hearing and we start identifying with what is happening in the mind. That's how we control it. Generally, we get carried away what happens around and the mind gets affected. But a self-realized person, for him, the mind, he don't identify. So whatever happens, he says, okay, then what? Like that. So that means he is so much free from all these things. So the self-realized soul is thus reflected first in the threefold ego and then in the body, senses, and mind. So this is the condition that I am this body, but liberated soul thinks I am not this body, I am spirit soul. So is thus reflected first in the threefold false ego and goodness, passion, ignorance. Then the and in the body, senses and mind. So uh, it is soul only which is reflected. So Paramatma as a sun is reflected in water, from water to the on the wall of the room. Now somebody is seeing, oh, there is sun on the wall of the moon. So it is not. But the when we see, we identify like that. So here also we think that the body is the self only. Sometimes we think mind is the self. So this identification is what is forcing me to act in this world. Until we are self-realized, we identify ourselves with body only. And if somebody says you are very bad, you look very dirty, you are nasty, immediately we feel offended because as such soul is not bad, soul is not anything. Nothing happens to soul. But because that reflection, the soul is reflected in the body, soul is reflected in the senses, soul is reflected in mind. Anything happens to that, we think that I am the body, I am the mind, I am the senses. So we try to work for them and unnecessarily we get entangled. So you are understanding the point here. The soul is only different. So we say I am people so strongly identify with the body, right? Threefold. Prabhupada says threefold qualities are goodness, passion, and ignorance. So this is what Prabhupada says. We'll again see what Prabhupada is telling in the conditions. All things. I am this body. That's the liberation. I am the, and this I is called ego or identification. I am this body or everything in the relationship body is mind. This is called false ego. But when one is self-realized and think that he is an eternal servitor of Supreme Lord, this identification is real. One conception is in the darkness of threefold qualities of material nature: goodness, passion, and ignorance. and other is in pure state of goodness. So here this three are three modes: sattva, raja, and tama. And next shloka says that although a devotee appears to be merged in the five material elements, the objects of material enjoyment, the material senses and material mind intelligence is understood to be awake and to be free from the false ego. This is very, very, very important to understand what is the main difference. That's why we should not think a devotee to be ordinary. When when devotee in the initial times of Krishna consciousness, he organized a program. In that he wrote, he was making a poster or some invitation for Prabhupada. He wrote, "The man who changed the consciousness of the world." This poster was made. When Prabhupada read it, he was very unhappy. He said that Guru cannot be a man. Guru is not a man. That is the point. So we should not, when we see a pure devotee or a very exalted devotee, even though externally all activities are going on, he's also sometimes his mood changes. He's acting one time like this, sometime like this, and he's behaving in a particular way, and he's also having this body and mind and senses and all. Then I think, okay, what is the difference? Prabhupada also had body, mind. Prabhupada also had different moods. Prabhupada also he changed his decisions and plans. Prabhupada about there was a building. They wanted to purchase a church. It was coming for so much big amount. Then when yeah, so what is the cost of it? Then he asked, okay, how much we have at BBT? And then he said, yeah, actually, we should work hard for Krishna. We should make something good for Krishna. So let us have the building. So now we say, "Arey, he's changing the mood. He told one thing he's doing. Now, what is important here? This is very important. Even though there are, there appears to be merged in the five material elements, the object of material enjoyment, the material senses, the material mind, intelligence. But most important thing is he understood to be awake and to be free from false ego. So even though all these things are there, na, he does not identify himself with any of these things. He's awakened. So even though you have a body and the body may have defects, the body may not be, sometime it is having some, Prabhupada is wearing spectacles. Now it looks a defective, like no, uh, spectacles means there is a defect. And then he became sick. So it's a defect. But we should know that it is all external. For him, the most important thing, the false ego. The false ego is real ego for him. There is no false ego only. He identifies himself as servant of Krishna. If Krishna gives a pure devotee certain body, he accepts that body and work with that for the pleasure of Krishna. The pure devotee is there. Krishna is telling, okay, take the body of like Kamala Manjari. He is given the body of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. It is said that Bhaktivinoda Thakur, so much part of his life is sick only. When he was planned to come to Navadvip, he became terribly sick. He became sick almost for 45 days. He read Chaitanya Charitamrita. After reading Chaitanya Charitamrita, for him to come to Navadvip, it took almost like 15 to 20 years or maybe more. He could not come only. So when he got an opportunity in Krishnagar, he was becoming deputy magistrate. He wanted to come. He became sick almost 40-45 days. He only drank milk. Days, then he writes that, oh, so many problems are coming. Maybe there is something good that is going to happen. And then he takes prasadam after so many days. Then he says, this is the most delicious prasadam I have taken. Now the point is why Krishna gave such a sick body to Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Yeah, he wanted to teach us, that's why. So for Bhaktivinoda Thakur, it does not affect. Because false ego don't identify with the body only. It is using it as a means to do something for Krishna. Your understanding. So for Bhaktivinoda Thakur, this body is a means which Krishna gave me to utilize. Now, if Krishna gives some khatara like very what do you say, very old car, and he says now you take this old car and do preaching. For a devotee, he feels okay, if Krishna want me to use this old car and go for preaching, I'll go for Sankirtan, not a problem, because it's what Krishna wants. And sometime Krishna may give a Mercedes car and he says, okay, take this for and do preaching and come, Sankirtan and come. So somebody may take it. Now he don't identify with the car. He will only think if this is what Krishna want, I will do it. So similarly, a devotee, he does not identify himself with what body Krishna gave him. Sometimes it's a sick body, sometimes very healthy body, like Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur, very powerful body, and then and whatever. Uh, like sometimes it is. Uh, Now, body means it includes the mind also. So, the particular way of thinking, particular way of doing, and some of the property service, they are not very good in management. Now, people they were very offended. Oh, he did not manage nicely. He did not do this nicely. But whatever they were given, the facilities by Krishna, they are utilizing in Krishna's service because Krishna gave them mind which can think that much only. So they will think that much only and do it for Krishna and go to Krishna back. Not everybody can be managers, like we have Jannivas proven. They are not managers, they are just simple doing. That much only Krishna gave them. They are utilizing it and going back to Krishna. Like Bhakti Sarup Damodar Maharaj. They are very simple. They no, they are not very sophisticated or very diplomatic managers. They are very simple. Now that is what Krishna gave them, but scientific brain to do some things like that. So what I want to tell here is that what is the most important thing for a pure devotee is that they don't identify with the body that is given to them, the mind that is given. Whatever they are given, they will use it. Sometime katara wala, sometime good wala, sometime whatever. Your understanding, right? And then the living entity can vividly feel his existence as the seer. But because of the disappearance of false ego during the state of deep sleep, he falsely takes himself to be lost. Like a man who has lost his fortune and feels distress thinking himself to be lost. So this I still have a question on this which is not yet clarified. I asked Bhaktivigyan Maharaj, but somehow he was thinking about it and suddenly some other things came. He didn't answer only my question. Maybe if I get again another opportunity to ask, I wanted to ask this question. What uh, what is the difference between a soul merging in Mahavishnu and soul merging into Brahman? Because in both cases, the living entity does not have any settled body only. Both cases, there is no settled body. Then what exactly is the difference? So I don't know the answer. I will find and I will definitely share with all of you. But here we have some other things which Prabhupada is trying to explain. We'll try to understand them. He says that only in ignorance does the living entity thinks that he is lost. If by attachment of uh, knowledge he comes to the real position of his eternal existence, he knows that he is not lost. An appropriate example is mentioned here. Nashtavitta Ivataru Duraha. A person who has lost a great sum of money may think that he is lost. Actually, he is not lost, only his money is lost. But due to his absorption in the money or identification with money, he thinks that is lost. Similarly, when we falsely identify with matter as our field of activity, we think that we are lost, although actually we are not. As soon as a person is awakened to pure knowledge and of understanding that he is an eternal is revived. So this we have discussed this purport also. There is something chat box. Maybe after creation, soul merging in Mahavishnu has a chance to again getting. Yeah, they come, but I want to know the difference. So because there is no like, if you have desires, where are the desires? Desires there in the chitta. But for a soul who is merging in the body of Mahavishnu, you don't have chitta only. So where are the desires then? Where is the question of soul thinking if you don't have mind and mind only to think? Soul does not have. So what exactly is happening there? Because mind you get after you come into when the soul enters in from Mahavishnu's body, it enters into Mahatattva, then it gets mind, intelligence, and ego, right? But before that, it does not have ego also. It is in the body of Mahavishnu. What exactly is happening? So, like that. Hmm. So, today we will try to take at least one, two shlokas. Okay, one shloka. When by mature understanding one can realize his individuality, then the situation he accepts under false ego becomes manifest to himself. The Mayavadis philosophy position is that at the ultimate issue, the individual is lost. Everything becomes one, and there is no distinction between the knower and the knowledge, and the knowledge, sorry, distinction knower, knowable, and knowledge. But by minute analysis, we can see that this is not correct. Individuality is never lost, even when one thinks that the three different principles, namely the knower, noble knowledge, are all amalgamated or merged in one. The very concept that the three merged into one is another form of knowledge. And since the pursuer of knowledge still exists, how can one say that the knower, knowledge, and knowable have become one? The individual soul who is perceiving this knowledge still remains an individual. Both in material existence and in spiritual existence, the individuality continues. The only difference is in the quality of the identity. The material identity, the false ego acts, and because of false identification, one takes things to be different from that he actually are. They actually are. This is the basic principles of devotional service. Similarly, when false ego is purified, one takes everything in the right perspective. This is the that is the state of liberation. Oh, okay. Any questions, comments? We'll end here. There's something in chat. There is question. The soul is sleepy state merged in Mahavishnu or Bahirmukha, not knowing the real state. Yeah, that is correct. Now the point is um, what exactly they experience. That is the point. Like they are sleeping deeply. They are also in some sort of bliss, and in Brahmajyoti some sort of bliss. So what exactly is difference? I wanted to know. Okay, we will discuss on this. I'll check with Maharaj also what Maharaj says. Then I'll definitely share with all of you. Thank you all very much. tomorrow onwards we have Bhishmanchak. All the best for that. And tomorrow we'll meet. Hare Krishna. ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय, श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय।